Welcome to Tennessee State University National Alumni Association Programming Committee. The Financial Fitness, How Finances Affect Your Health, a discussion with banking executive alumnus Troy Smith. Please help me introduce Dr. Revlon Briggs, the TSU National Alumni Association National Programming Committee. She is the subcommittee chair of the Health, Wellness, and Wholeness Subcommittee.
Good evening, TSU alumni. I'm honored and excited to introduce you to a dynamic young man who will provide information on an important topic pertaining to the correlation between finances and health. Troy M. Smith is a native of Knoxville, Tennessee. He has over a decade of experience as a banking executive and currently serves as vice president of mortgage lending. Troy is an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and the author of The Mindset of Successful Thinking. He is also the host of the Naughty Lounge podcast, which stands for Not Overthinking It, and co-host of the Two Brothers podcast, which can be found on social media and all podcast platforms. Troy is a graduate of Tennessee State University, earning both the Bachelor of Science degree in Mass Communications and Theater in 2006 and the Master's of Education degree with a concentration in Leadership and Supervision in 2008. Troy is married to the beautiful wife, Adrienne, for 13 years and is the father of two wonderful children, Sir Duke and Duchess Kaya. Let's welcome our speaker for the evening, Mr. Troy M. Smith.
Hello, everybody. I got some sound. I want to put some clan claps behind me. I'm hoping that Kendra don't be upset with me. Yeah. Welcome to tonight's episode and discussion. My name is Troy Smith, as you see on the screen there. I want to thank you all for allowing me to come here today. Dr. Briggs, thank you so much for having me and that's actually introducing me to Kendrick and the team. And we're going to talk about how finances affect your health. Now, by me being in banking or being a mortgage, so what I do in banking, I'm a mortgage loan originator. So I help people get homes. I help them achieve their dream of being a homeowner. So it'd only be right for me to actually give a couple statistics about homeownership amongst Black Americans. All right. So here go a couple interesting facts as we get into it. All right. So before we get started, I want to put a saying out there. It's something that Jim Rowe said. All right. So he said, don't be a follower, be a student. Take advice, but not orders. Take information, but do not let somebody order your life. Make sure that what you do is a product of your own conclusion. Jim Rohn. I don't know where I got Jim Rohn from. Jim Rohn. Let me say it again. Don't be a follower, be a student. We all have been students at one time. And if you're a wise individual, you understand that you are a student throughout life. So take advice, but do not take orders. Take information, but do not let somebody order your life. Make sure that what you do is a product of your own conclusion. All right. And then I want to actually ask you to write this down if you can see it. Well, you can't see it. I want you to write it down. It says, this is another quote. Just because it's a fact doesn't mean it has to be your fate. Just because it's a fact doesn't mean it has to be your fate. So let's take a quick second to exactly understand what the term fact mean and fate. Fact and fate. Fact, a thing that is known or provided to be true. Fate, the development of events beyond a person's control, regarded as determined by a supernatural power. I heard that one day when I went to a leadership event and someone got up on stage. I can't remember the young lady's name, but she said, just because it's a fact doesn't mean it has to be your fate. And I want everyone to realize that and think about that, because we're going to talk about facts right quick, but it doesn't mean it has to be your fate. All right. So the facts will be this. Then we got to talk a little bit about mortgage lending, because that's what I do. And if you need a mortgage, let me know. The current 30%, it's a 30% gap between Black and white homeownership. And it's larger than it was in 1968 when housing discrimination was legal. That's an important thing to know. 1968, when you had the actual law that was passed to get rid of discrimination of home ownership. And if you're someone, I know we actually have a couple different demographic, different ages on here. You may at one time remember that you could not own a home, or they were definitely discriminating for African Americans owning a home with redlining and things like that, Jim Crow. But think about that. Here in 2021, there's a larger gap of Black home ownership amongst white home ownership. And it's larger than it was in 1968 when it was okay to discriminate. We got to change that. Number two, another fact will be in home ownership. Home ownership is lower for Black college graduates than for white high school dropouts. Home ownership is lower for Black college graduates than for white high school dropouts. Now, when we do our Q&A, I hope to have some discussion and dialogue around those two things right there. Of course, this whole thing, I would hope, but that's some startling facts, but it doesn't mean it have to be our fate. So I wanted to cover those two things when it comes down to mortgage lending and the Black crisis, the situation, the homeownership crisis that Black Americans are facing every year, every day, every year when it comes down to home ownership. Okay. So now let's get to the fact about health and how health is actually a part of your wealth, is a part of your health. So let's get on to that. Here's a fact about that. Anxiety and depression. Studies have shown that individuals who struggle with debt, which is almost like death, are more likely to also suffer from depression and anxiety. This may show itself in several areas of physical wellness, including headaches, lack of quality sleep, inability to focus and function. Now, I believe that we all can actually agree to that, especially in 2020, which sometimes seems like 2021 is just chapter 2 of what happened last year. But what people are actually dealing with when it comes down to being stressful with debt, they're dealing with anxiety, depression at a higher rate, resentment and irritation. Now, I want to ask people this, and I hope we see the comments later. How much do you deal with resentment and irritation when you broke? It's almost like when you're outside, right? When you're outside, when it's too hot outside and you get upset, like you're mad at someone that's talking so much. It's too hot for all that. Why are you talking so much? Same thing when you broke, or same thing when you're having issues financially. You actually start resenting and being irritated. When debt becomes a problem, so can resentment, especially in relationships. According to a poll by Insider.com, 36.1% of couples that divorce did so due to financial issues. We already know that. We know how financial issues can be an issue too. These issues varied, but it's almost all contributed to buildup of debt and overspending. And the last thing being denial. One way to deal with emotional stress that debt causes is to not deal with it at all. When people feel overwhelmed, denial of the situation often seems easier than taking the first step toward fixing the problem. Let me stop right there. Does that sound true? Can you raise your hand or whatever you can do on this screen, or put a comment in there and say, yes, I can relate to that. Yes, I've dealt with anxiety and depression. Yes, everyone is dealing with those. Psychological issues happen when you're having financial issues. And I had one more. Lastly, coronary heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States and African Americans. And it all can be contributed to debt. It can be contributed to debt. That's the sad thing. So I'm going to be personable with you tonight because we all can relate to a lot of different things. But one thing we can't relate to is hard times and good times. But I'm going to be really personable with you today in regards to myself and how I've dealt with debt in the past and how I've overcome situations to get away from the stress that comes along with having stress on you. The 18,000-pound gorilla that be on your back. Godzilla literally riding you like a horse. That's what debt does. But I'm going to go back up to this one thing. I got to say this too. You know that part about the income? I mean, in regards to black home ownership and the gap that's expanding. But homeownership is lower for black college graduates than for white high school dropouts. Do you know what the leading issue while black college people with college educated people with degrees, the reason why they don't have homes is student loan debt. Student loan debt, baby. Them golden clackums, that clack, that Sally Mae, that girlfriend on the side. Sally Mae, baby. Anything, any type of home loans, or when it comes down to student loans, have been the main thing that's actually been holding people back from black people back from home ownership. And I've been seeing it a lot lately in regards to when now that everything is happening. You know, the housing market is booming. And I don't know where you are, maybe listening right now, but Nashville is booming with housing, with selling of homes. And people are wanting to buy a house. But one thing they've been struggling with is actually being able to get a home, although they're not paying for their monthly bills because the government's put a hold on it and your monthly payment is zero for the month. They've come to me and said, hey, Troy, I want to buy a house. My credit is strong. I got places and things in order. But I ask them, how much is your student debt? Oh, it's $100,000, but I ain't paying for it monthly right now. If you don't know this, and now you're going to know, and maybe you already experienced it, is this. Just because that payment says zero, the bank is always going to look at it from the worst case scenario. Now I have to actually take that dollar amount that shows zero, and you got $100,000 balance. I got to put it at 1% of the loan balance. So that means that $100,000 balance you have will make a $1,000 payment a month. And that's been holding people back from home ownership. And what we're going to do now is try to get rid of the debt over time. But I'm just saying that's one of the things, the reason why white college dropouts are better off of owning a home than black college graduates. All right. So we get past that. So let's talk about in regards to the issue at hand when it comes down to, and I'm going to be personable when it comes down to debt and how it can really play a number on your health. But I think that we all can actually go back to where, you know, when you start having issues, you start thinking about, where did this all come from? Where did this start? My mama told me not to get that credit card. My daddy told me not to get that credit card just because they're down here at the student center on Wednesday giving out Subway sandwiches. Giving out a Subway sandwich if you sign up for this credit card. My mama told me not to do that. But you did it anyway. Okay, so you go back to when it started. But I can tell you exactly when it started for me. And let me know if you can relate to this. When I started getting that student loan, when I first wanted to get that calm data refund check. So I'm in my dorm right in freshman year in Watson Hall. I'm sitting down on my bed. My roommates laughing. They all having a good time. I'm like, hey, what are you laughing so hard for? They said, oh, man, you know, I'm feeling good, man. I just got my refund check. Now, what do you mean your refund check? He said, man, oh, I just got $2,000 on my refund check. Tell me more about this, because I just looked at, I want to know how I can get a refund. He said, well, call that card. If y'all remember, put some numbers in the deal there. If you remember about the COM data, you might be too young, but if you're old enough, you know. The COM data, your ID card, you can actually use as a debit card. He said, yeah, man, I got $2,000. He said, call that card. It'll tell you what your balance may be. I said, cool, I'm going to call that card. I called it, and he said, I got $400. I said, I got $400. How can I get $2,000? He said, well, man, what you got to do is go down to the financial aid office and tell them that you want some more money. So I went down to the financial aid office. I said, hey, I want to get $2,000 on my card. My roommate said he got $400. I said I got $400. My roommate said he has $2,000. How can I get more? And they went through all the preliminaries and said, Troy, you can get it. But guess what? That money on there is grant money. You don't owe anything. That's money left over from your grants paying for your school. I said, but hey, how can I get more though? Well, you can sign up for this student loan That's where it all started. And they said, how much you want? And God dang it, you know I want the max. So put it all on there. Can I get it today? They said, no, you get it next semester. Now you got a person from the projects of Knoxville, Tennessee, got his first $4,000 check or deposit on my ComData card. Your express ComData balance is $4,000. You know, that big mix, you know, that Paul's used to have. You might remember that if you went to school, you know, you got that ComData you waiting for and it's lagging. Your express cash balance is 4,000. I'm ready to go to Antioch. I'm ready to go down. This when Hickory Hollow was booming. I'm ready to go to Hickory Hollow Mall. I'm ready to go blow it all. Buy 2 or 3 cars. That's where it started from. That time that I was looking at actually getting more money on my refund check. And what happened over time is I started kicking that can down the street because guess what? I always said I'll pay it back later. I'll pay it back later. I'll pay it back later. That almost sound like the government too, right? I'll pay it back later. We're going to give you this much money. I'll pay it back later. And I start realizing it's all money, good money. It's a whole nother thing. I'll pay it back later on. And that pay it back later started building up more stress. Before I got married, before I had children, I didn't worry about it. Didn't think about it. But it got to a point where it started plaguing me. It started plaguing me where I was actually having that heavy weight on me that I couldn't get nothing done because of the fact that it's developed the clink clank, the Sally Mae, the direct student loans, all that stuff started coming on the back of everything. And I started creating something with anxiety. I started developing anxiety. I started developing something, denial. Denial started to set in because one of the things that people actually do because they don't want to focus on it is to be in denial of the situation. Right? I didn't want to talk about that. I didn't want to think about it. I'll do it later. I kick it down the street. But one thing I am thankful for the denial. Because at one time it got to a point to where I had the anxiety building up on me because the student loans was on top of me. Not only that, other bills I created, car notes I created was as much as someone's mortgage because I could do it and I had the credit to do it. Not understanding the importance of credit, not understanding debt in general. I can do it. Give it to me. I just pay it off later. It got to a point to where I started developing paranoia. I'm going to be 100% honest with you tonight. I was paranoid. I started getting nervous all the time. And maybe you can relate to this, but I'm telling you, I'm thankful that I couldn't do bankruptcy. I was at that point about saying, can I do bankruptcy? They said, sir, unfortunately, you made too much money. Because I was kicking it down the street so much, they told me I could not do it. I'm thankful they told me no. But I was embarrassed that I even had to go to that point. I said, hey, man, can I do this? Can I do that? No. Well, if I do bankruptcy, maybe my student loans could be included. And if you don't know, your student loans, government loans cannot be included in bankruptcy. But they told me no, I made too much money at that point. I said, okay, I can't do that. It got to a point though, like I said, paranoia started to set in. My toughest year I ever had, I seen so many sheriffs in my life. Now, if you don't know, sheriffs are the people that serve you for a court appearance if you have debt or someone's trying to sue you. But I've seen, not me personally, where that was happening to me. I just seen sheriffs all the time looking for somebody to serve. At a couple of my offices, some employees come, I just never seen it before in my life. 'Cause I was paranoid, so I started seeing everything. And they was like, I'm looking for so-and-so. I'm like, oh, they ain't looking for me. I mean, I literally was looking around like, who are they looking for? They looking for me. That's how much debt really started to grip me. The fear, the stress and everything that come along with it. But paranoia, I got to get that up off of me, man. That's not a healthy way of living. That's not the diseases and things that come along with it because now your immune system is low because you can't sleep. I tell you what, though, one thing that did happen out of all that, I lost a little bit more weight. Boy, I was working out all the time. I was working out. I was jogging. My brain was working good. Boy, I was feeling good because I had to get my mind moving to get that blood flowing because I don't want to think about it. But I seen so much. I used to hear a truck go by where my house was at. and I hear like a diesel truck or something, I'm thinking they're gonna repo my car. I ain't paid my car notes in a while. I'm stressed out. I was going through a whole lot. And I'm quite sure you can probably relate to that too. Can you be vulnerable enough to not be no longer in denial to say, hey man, this stuff is piling up on me. I need to see this a different way. I need to get something else going and get rid of this because of all the things that come along with stress, dealing with wealth or financial stress, resentment, irritation, anxiety, depression, stress kills, right? But I'm gonna tell y'all an interesting fact with this though. One thing stress did do, and when you are lacking, it taught you how to be quick on your feet. That's for sure. It taught you how to be quick on your feet. Some stress is good for you. Like one of the statistics say, while too little stress can lead to a boredom and depression, too much stress can lead to anxiety and poor health. The right amount of stress, though, however, tunes up the brain and improves performance and health. I can relate to both of those. I can relate to both of those. And I'm quite sure you probably can relate to it as well if you can be honest with yourself when it come down to what you're dealing with financially. All right. So let's say, what's the solution then? Let's get to the solution. How did I actually start renewing the way that I do things? Or how did I get away from the burden of carrying stress on me so much to where I want to establish the freedom? Because we always talk about how we don't want to deal with something or be somewhere or be in a certain situation, but we never do anything to change it. So they say one of the things about what is that? When you expecting change and doesn't happen, you're expecting change to happen. You're doing so many different things, but doing the same thing over. So what happened is you pay your debt off, then you get right back in it. You pay your debt off and consolidate, then you get right back in it. That's creating I can't remember the term. Somebody help me out. The term of, what is that? Being a psycho. That's one thing it does. But so here's the solution. What did I do to actually start seeing things differently and actually get out of that? To try to create a better outcome in regards to financial situation, try to have a better life dealing with health, because we understand financial stress causes bad health. So I changed the way that I did see debt. Debt is not always a bad thing if you're doing it right. Like taking advantage of spending someone else's money, like a bank. You borrow money to spend their money, but pay them back according to the contract. See, when I was getting those Subway sandwiches at school, from when they used to come down with Capital One or whoever used to come down to the campus and have you sign up for a $300 card because you get a Subway sandwich. I didn't understand the importance of paying it back. Being committed to the agreement that you have. Only using it when it's when it's a need compared to just doing it because you can. I had to start renewing the way that I think in regards to about finances in general. And we can get into deeper discussions outside this platform in one of my courses I teach in regards to financial literacy. But that's the thing about it. I started thinking about, I got to look at this differently. It's not the same way. See, when you're from the inner city or from the projects where I was from, if you got it, you just spend it. No one was showing you. My mama told me not to do it, but she never told me why or showed me a better way of doing it. See, we always tell people that you shouldn't do certain things. They should do things differently, but they don't ever give you the solution. And the solution was I had to start thinking about it differently and reading up on financial literacy and actually searching out and actually obtaining the information. Look, I became a student, not a follower. And I came up with my own conclusion. See, what I was doing when I was in college, when I was a freshman in that dormitory, listening to my roommates talking about how they got $2,000 on refund, I was coming up with their conclusion for me and thinking I need to get what they got because it makes me happier, which it did not overturn. I had to stop kicking the can at some time. Had to start thinking about it differently. I avoided distractions. I started concentrating on one thing and actually concentrating on my job at work. See, what happens over time is that when you feel like you're smarter than everybody, you start doing a whole lot of different things. You start putting your hands in different pots, being involved with different stuff. You go out here and do this. Then you got another company. Now you're doing another company. Now you're doing something else and not concentrating on that thing that can actually bring you financial provision. You know, I hear a lot of people oftentimes say it's important to have multiple streams of income. Well, what if you can have one stream, one thing you focus on that can make all the other streams come to you? So what I started doing, I started concentrating on my job. I've been in banking for over 13 years, but I never concentrated on being a banker. I never concentrated on being a mortgage loan originator. I just kept doing other stuff. And once I actually made a conscious decision to concentrate on one thing, I was able to avoid the distractions. I read a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. Y'all might have heard of Gary Keller. Besides my book, which is The Mindset of Successful Thinking, besides that book, which is a good book, I read other stuff. And I was reading the One Thing by Gary Keller. And he had something called the focus question. I want y'all to think about this or write it down. But the focus question go like this. What's the one thing I can do such by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And once I actually read that and I sat down and I thought about it, because this is when I was at my brokest point, I said, I got to concentrate, avoid all the other distractions, and actually concentrate on one thing that would bring wealth to my family, better health to me, because I'm doing one thing that will end up feeding everything else. Sometimes we all just got to slow down. One thing that the coronavirus taught us last year, you better sit your butt down somewhere. God got an interesting way of telling you to sit down somewhere, and he has set the world down on them. So I started reading. I thought about the focus question. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? That changed my life. Remember, be a student, not a follower. Come up with your own conclusion. But I want you to hear that quote right there and think about the one thing you can do that make everything else easier or unnecessary. When I concentrate on doing that, next thing you know, things start to change for me. I made the most money I ever made in my life. And this is the truth. This is the truth. When you no longer have the stress of financial stress on you, you all of a sudden have an easier mindset. You start seeing things a little bit different. You start thinking about, do I really need that? See, when you've been broke before, you start thinking about it. Okay, I've been there before. Do I really need to go back there again? And sometimes we end up staying in the same spot because we haven't really got it. We haven't really understood the situation we went through. Let me tell you this last story right here. So I was sitting in my house, reading the focus question, reading stuff. So I think, what's the one thing I can do? But I had my rent and everything else, dude. Stressed out. Talked to my wife, stressed out. I don't know what else I can do. Legally, the right way. I got to change this, man. But when I started focusing on my business, I done kicked that can down the street so much, I got to still take care of the now. See, oftentimes we look at the future and not looking at the now. So we do a lot of things for now understand how much it's going to impact us later. You know, you can pray a lot. You can do a lot of praying all you want until you make a decision. The good thing about praying in a moment when it's stressful, you now at that point to where you say, I give up, I'm done. I needed $5,000. Rent was due. Other things were due. Car note bills was due. All that stuff was due. Stressed out. I said, I can't do no more. I'm done. I'm relaxed. You know, it's like in the midst of a storm when it's calm. I'm relaxed, man. I'm done with that. I changed the way I started thinking about stuff. I stopped stressing. I stopped thinking about it. I just know the next time I get it, I'm going to be out. I'm not going in this again. I said, God, you got to finally take the wheel. You need to do something. Take the wheel. And that's what, man, I'm telling you, I stopped. He took the wheel. And that next day, which sometimes it depends. Remember, I started looking at things differently. I looked at my bank account. That must have like $30-something in. I don't know what it was, $10. I don't know. My credit cards was maxed out to the max, to the hilt. I happened to get up early in the morning. My credit card limit was only $2,000, was maxed out over the limit. I looked at my statement. I looked at my online balance. That thing said you got $5,000 of available credit on your credit card. Remember, I told you I need $5,000 to take care of some bills. But see, this where it came is where it's important. I had to start seeing debt differently. I even called the bank and said, hey, did y'all mess up? Did somebody mess up something? Because my credit card was maxed out yesterday. And right now it shows I got an available credit of $5,000, which makes my available credit, total credit allowance, $7,000. I need $5,000, but before I use it and spend it, I want to make sure that I can do it. They say, oh, no, that's you, sir. That's all you. Congratulations. I said, look at God. Look at him. He came through. I let him take the wheel. He came through for me. But I had to look at it differently, though. The one part of the solution was looking at debt and credit differently. Not to go back in it, but to be there in the time of need and then repay it back as obligated. And the last thing I started doing, believe it or not, man, is, and I encourage everyone to do it, regardless of your size. I started working out. I literally started seeing the importance of body movement. Get on the treadmill and just walk in 20 minutes. Get on the treadmill and start walking 30 minutes. Lift the little weights. I noticed that because when I was in my stressful moment, I told you, my mind started to be much clearer. My blood flowing because I started being more creative. And I was in that moment of trying to figure things out. See, what happened oftentimes when your stuff is going good, you end up missing out. You end up missing the things. I started working out. Not for my family, not for my children, not for the children, not for my wife, but for myself. For my own mental health. It's called a coping mechanism. I know people that have actually dealt with psychological issues throughout life, and believe it or not, they have them coloring in coloring books. It might seem like a joke, but it may be funny to some people, but it's not, because it actually helps you calm your nerves. So oftentimes you might have to pull out a coloring book, pull out a pen and paper, start writing music, write a song, write a story, color. But you got to actually move and do something, because oftentimes as we start seeing anxiety and depression and stress at times actually start making you actually want to be recluse and start being in the corner somewhere and actually don't see things properly. It starts to bother you. That's how we can actually get rid of the issues in regards to debt. It's coming an actual trigger towards bad health. All right. So we discussed the idea where it started from. Sometimes you got to go back and look at where things started. Where did this whole thing start when it comes down to your stress and situation? All the time it can relate to go back to one thing. And one for me, it was me getting that student loan, getting that refund money. That I started kicking the issue down the street to the point to where denial was there, where I was like, this is not happening to me. I didn't accept it, but I'm thankful that I got denied for a lot of different things. I'm thankful I was told no on some things, but denial will set in and try to tell you you're not going through it. You're in it by yourself when you're not. And the next thing is understanding what's the solution behind it. The only thing is that you can start changing the way that you think and doing things. All right. So this is where we go from here. You started building good relationships with the right people. Start building a relationship with the right people. Start getting around the right folks, just like this situation right here, this platform. Getting involved with other alumnus, discussing how we can help each other and build each other's character, build each other's financial situation, and actually give each other, and help other people become students of life. And it can become students, not just followers, but actually become students of life, understanding the difference in regards to financial understanding. Now, if we get that financial understanding, the stress will be relieved. You have a better lifestyle. Hope it helped you. Hope it encouraged you. And one last thing, I want to let you know this too. A lot of people know, now I got to go back to the mortgage thing before I go. Sometimes people don't know that they are actually sitting, if you're a homeowner, you actually may be sitting in a gold mine. Some people don't know that they're actually sitting in a gold mine when they come down to home ownership. You've actually done the right things. You got your home and you're in it, and you didn't know that the equity in your house can help you relieve the stress that you may be under. I've helped a lot of people actually understand the importance where they can actually refinance the home they have and relieve that stress. They can consolidate all their debt and bills. They say, I can do that. Yes, you can do that. You can take a portion of the equity in your house without having to sell it. You can stay in your home, use the equity in your house, and actually pay off all that debt. I've actually seen people consolidate their debt and pay off their student loans, pay off their credit cards, and now they got one payment. Freedom, financial freedom. You may not have known that you're living in a gold mine. All right. So I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. If you want to get with me, talk with me about financial literacy, about home ownership and things of that sort, you can reach me there at troynsmith.com. But then also knowing that's too, and there's a book there too, knowing that with that financial provision when it comes down to home ownership, I mean, not home ownership, but refinancing, you pay off all your debt. You also give a portion to TSU. You give a portion to TSU. All right. Appreciate y'all.
So we're going to take some question and answers as relates to Mr. Smith and his time. We want to thank him again. And of course, Dr. Briggs, who is the subcommittee chair over this particular committee. And we're going to go ahead and ask some people for some questions. All right. I believe one question is, what is the best way and strategy to pay off student loans?
So it's going to come, you got to break it down a little bit more, because the best way of strategizing, well, the best strategy you can use by paying off your student loan is find out what your monthly debt is, and also paying what you can actually afford. See, sometimes you get out of school and you start saying, I want to pay this off fast. And one of the biggest statistics show that college graduates, African-Americans, are at a larger rate of defaulting on their loans because they actually want to pay off their debt really fast and get a payment that's going to be high for the obligation when they can actually stretch it out a little bit. So you actually pay something you can actually afford, and then you just start chipping away at it. If you can double up on it, double up on it. But get the lowest payment. I encourage people to get the lowest payment needed and then have the lowest obligation and then just double up on that payment going towards the principal.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for that. Another question that we have from Instagram is, where do you start when you're buying a home?
The first step is actually know where you stand at credit-wise. That's the first step. Actually get your credit pulled. You can go to freecreditreport.com and you actually get your credit pulled. They actually will give you what's on your credit, see where everything is. Then you can actually pay for the scores as well. But then your credit cards, you may have, some people may have credit cards. They allow you to actually get free credit scores every month. Start to find out what's on your credit. Look and see what your what your credit rating is. And then we go to the next step in regards to having stable income. Then we go to actually applying, and then you actually get your home.
Another question that we have on Instagram, which is a great follow-up. Are there great first-time home buyer programs?
Yeah, absolutely. First-time home buyer programs. So if you haven't owned a home ever before, the bank can also give you a good opportunity, products. And then also you got government programs there too to help first-time home buyers with no money down to low down payments, as low as 3.5% of what the dollar amount would be in regards to the purchase price. So there are definitely first-time home buyer programs available, which you can also Google first-time home buyer program. They'll pop right up.
Okay, great.
Also call me and we'll talk about it.
All right, y'all know how to reach him. One really great question, I think that a lot of people are very interested in, especially in the last 6 months, is I'm trying to get into cryptocurrency. Any tips?
Well, just know what you're doing and what you're actually investing in. There's a lot of you can actually create your own coin. I don't know if you know that. You actually create your own coin if you wanted to. Sometimes you be buying things and they may not actually be trading at all. So you just got to know what you're getting yourself into. But I'm not real versed in cryptocurrency. I don't look at it on the daily. That's one of those daily things you got to keep up with because currency move all the time.
Here's another question from Miss Joy Pig. Are there tips for teaching kids financial literacy?
Absolutely. First step will be get them this book right here, The Mindset of Successful Thinking. That's the first step. But there are tips to teaching financial literacy in general. A lot of banks are doing a lot of initiative to teaching children financial literacy. It's a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's another shameless plug for another author, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great step of start actually realizing, understanding debt and liabilities. And also when it comes down to currency and funds and things of that sort. So you definitely do it. And then you got a lot of Dave Ramsey courses too, when it comes down to the first step for children in financial literacy. But I tell you, the first thing you want to do, show them how to count money. You know, the simple things with the bills and understand what type of bill, what this bill may be. It may sound elementary, but that's important. Regular counting the cash.
Well, thank you for that. One other, some really people want some really great questions.
Forex trading is just basically currency. It's a platform for trading currency. Sorry.
No worries. So I guess some of the questions, as relates to some from Instagram is, how do you recover financially for being a part of a MLM, which is of course a multi-level marketing scheme? Mm-hmm. What some you give to our alums who are recovering from that?
I tell you what, one thing about multi-level marketing is that they're everywhere. When I was in college, man, especially if you got a gift of gab, they're going to come for you. They're going to come for you because they say, man, if I get this person up under me, I know they can bring somebody else in. Just know the product that you're selling. I don't believe there's an issue with multi-level marketing because some of them are actually having great products. But recovering from that is just do your research and know what you're actually selling. And then also choose the one thing you're going to concentrate on and stick in it for a little while. A lot of times people, they get in, get out, and they try something else new. They get in and get out, try something else new, so no one's going to trust them. But just know your product of what you're selling, what you're getting yourself into, because there's a lot of multi-level marketing businesses out there. A lot of people showing you their pay stub that ain't there. They done doctored up and say, this is what I made last month, and they ain't what they made. So just do your research.
That's a really great answer. Now, as relates to MLM and some other things, a lot of people are experiencing DMs and a lot of friends who might be hitting them up to participate in Forex. Can you help the listeners and viewers today understand that a little bit more? I think they're looking for a reliable source to understand what Forex is.
Forex trading is basically literally, you ever heard of the stock exchange and things of that sort? It's just a platform where you can actually trade currency. So that's all it is. It's just where you can trade currency back and forth throughout the day, all the time. But that's all that is. That's, people try to throw some acronyms and things out there where, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think I am. But if I'm wrong, I believe Forex trade is just where you literally have a platform to trading currency all the time. But currency changes all the time. I'm telling you, it's like blood pressure. It's up and down. And if you're not paying attention to it, you can lose a lot and you can gain a lot. But that's you just got to know the market that you're in and what you're playing with.
Great. Thank you so much, Troy, for that. One of our final question for the evening is, what are some of the best finance apps, that people can download on their phones that can really help them engage in the process of creating their financial fitness?
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna just be straight up. I don't even deal with the financial apps. I can't even say I deal with the only financial app I got is my bank. That's the only app I deal with on a continual basis, looking at all the time when it come down to the finance I'm doing. I literally concentrate on doing one thing. So I concentrate on doing my mortgages and doing mortgage lending in general. They got apps in that sense of where you can do research, things like that. But in regards to like Black Knight apps and things where you can learn about what's going on with the financial market for deal with mortgages and home lending, home purchases, but I don't have any other apps available that I can actually give credence to.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you so much today for coming on and being a part of this and leading the discussion on financial fitness and how finances can affect your health. Of course, everyone, you can find Troy Smith at troymsmith.com. Am I correct?
Yes. Great.
Awesome. Of course, we want to thank, National President Charles Galbraith, as well as Dr. Revlon Briggs, who's the subcommittee chair over health, wellness, and wholeness and the national programs chair. It's been such a great honor having you today, alumnus Troy Smith, and we look forward to seeing some gems dropped on Instagram. We'll be putting on our Instagram his answers to the questions, and we look forward to seeing him soon. So much. Thank you so much, Tigers, and have a great day.